Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and pause intermittently here and there to talk about things that are going on, to better explain what's going on, and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go. So there's nothing wrong with the audio.
Fire Medical 304, what is the city and address of your emergency?
San Diego,
Okay.
Tierra Santa Boulevard, Unit
Repeat that address again.
Tierra Santa Boulevard.
What unit number? Okay. What?
So this is obviously an apartment complex. Blocking out the street address number, I think, is kind of stupid. I could understand blocking out the actual unit number or something like that, but like, people in this area, they know what road this is. Like, trying to hide the street number for this big ass building, like, you ain't fucking fooling nobody. Some of these agencies out here who redact some of the audio from videos and audio recordings and stuff like that, or even redact images or stuff like that. Like, sometimes there's no common sense with how they do their redactions. It's like they go over the top with some of the stuff, and some of it just don't make any sense. Moving on.
What's the name of the apartment, sir?
It's called Eldorado Greens, and it's a condominium.
Okay. What's your phone number you're calling from?
See, she gives the name of the place. Anybody can Google the name of the place and then find out the fucking address there. So why redact the address? Makes no sense.
And tell me exactly what happened.
There's smoke coming out from under the door of the unit, and we have a man in there that we suspect there are mental issues with, and he's not answering the door.
Okay. How many stories is the building?
This is on the first floor.
How many total stories is the building?
Total stories, 4 stories plus a garage, so 5
Okay.
stories.
5 stories. Okay. All right. Okay, we're on the way there, okay?
Okay, thank
And
you so very much.
Do you know if anybody's home?
We don't know. He won't answer the door, but there's smoke coming out, so
Okay.
we have no clue.
All right, if there's a fire alarm to pull, go ahead and pull that now, and maybe just let the neighbors know they should evacuate just in case there's a fire.
Okay, I'll let them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
So these firefighters made entry into this room there's smoke coming from. I would suspect that if there's smoke coming out, they're firefighters, they would probably have an attack line as they're making entry to be able to suppress any fire they may encounter. So they encounter a dude holding a gun. If they've got an attack line, the best thing they could do is open that nozzle and start discharging a fuck ton of water at this guy. If you have never held a fire hose before and have opened that damn thing up, it'll knock a person down. Like, it'll, yeah. So they could have opened that stream up on that dude and just knocked the fucking shit out of him with a ton of water. And voila.
313 John. Per fire, the resident inside of the apartment with the fire has a gun and is not letting the fire department inside to put out the fire.
Every copy, the resident is not letting fire go in.
Hey, who got the gun pointed at him? Do you have an updated description on that guy?
We do. It's probably about in his 50s, black hair. He was sitting on the couch, so I did get a full description of him. What it looked like.
I'm sorry, so he was just on the couch, you guys walked in?
So I forced the door open, and then he was sitting on the couch in the living room. Okay. Basically, just up from here to where the squad car was. As soon as we opened the door, pointed his firearm right at me.
What is a pistol?
Pistol.
Or what are you saying, you guys?
Nothing.
He pointed at you?
Yeah. I forced the door and then took like a couple steps in, and that's when he...
Alright, first things first. They're going in on a dude, has a fucking gun, and what do they have? Pistols. Urgh, this shit pisses me off. This is one of my biggest gripes when it comes to videos like this is officers knowingly responding to a call involving guns, and they refuse to get their long guns out and go in at it, and instead just go with their pistols. Pistols suck ass in comparison to rifles. A rifle cartridge is going to outperform a pistol cartridge any day of the week. I don't care what kind of argument you think you can bring, you're wrong. It's a no contest thing. It's non-negotiable. Rifles beat pistols. The only reason why pistols are carried on a daily basis is because they are convenient and comfortable to be able to carry on a daily basis for 8, 10, 12, 16, 24 hours out of the day. And because gunfights are not occurring every single day for that person or that entity. If you look at your local law enforcement, ask yourself, when was the last time they got into a gunfight? And if it was recent, ask yourself, when was the time before that they got into a gunfight? You will find that the majority of the U.S., the police in this country, the majority go their entire career without ever having to shoot anyone. There are agencies out there where it has been years since they've ever had an officer-involved shooting. There are actually some agencies out there who've never had an officer-involved shooting at all. So that is why pistols are always carried. There's just not gunfights going on every fucking day. And it's comfortable and convenient to carry that pistol around. And if something were to happen where you needed to use deadly physical force to protect yourself or others in a very tense and rapidly evolving situation, then a pistol can produce incapacitating injuries to stop the threat. But those incapacitating injuries that they can cause, it can take multiple pistol rounds to be able to cause incapacitation. Whereas with the rifle, it could take 1 or 2 rounds to achieve incapacitation. Rifles are the preferred thing for gunfights. If you know you're going to a gunfight, bring a rifle and bring your friends with rifles. Alright, so obviously there's no attack line, so I guess they made entry into this apartment without an attack line, so what I said earlier obviously wouldn't work. But if they had made entry into this hotel with an attack line, then by all means, yeah. 3 San Diego police officers discharged their service weapons when he came out and pointed a gun at them. He was not hit. So, so I've talked about there being misses in gunfights. That's a thing. It happens. Of course, firearms training, you'll hear, every round you fire, that round, you're accountable for it. You're accountable for every round you fire. Every round you fire has your name on it. Although that is true, and you should strive to make every round hit its target, the reality of the matter when it comes to very, very tense, dynamic, life or death scenarios, sometimes you're not always going to get that accuracy that you can get on a flat range. And this is a training issue. So when officers go through their police academy training, that arguably is probably some of the best firearms training they're ever going to get in their career. Some places they may be able to spend several days on firearms training. There's some places they may spend like a week or 2 weeks on firearms training, going through pistol, rifle, shotgun, and they get to fire thousands of rounds. Some places maybe, a little bit less rounds and less time. But like I said, that's probably some of the best firearms training they're going to have provided to them by their agency. Well, in a way, that's not the agency doing it, it's the academy ran by the state. But you get what I'm saying. When they get back to their agency, what they mostly do, the bulk of, is once a year, maybe sometimes 2 or 3 times a year, they will qualify with their pistol or their rifles. And a qualification course is not a training course. Sorry guys, it's not fucking training. It's just qualification. Saying you're doing firearms training when you go do a qualification course, you're wrong. A qualification course is basically set up to where you take an individual and there's a target out there and they have to shoot at this target at varying distances from 5 yards, 10 yards, 15, 20, 25 yards, maybe 50 yards. And at each of these different distances, they may have to do it from a kneeling position, do it with both hands, do it with their dominant hand, do it with their non-dominant hand. They may have to do a reload at some point at one of these distances. It's not necessarily a timed event. It's more of a scored event, and the scoring is pass or fail. There is no, oh, you got 60% or you got 70% or you got 100. It's pass or fail. And that's it. That's all qualification is. As far as supplemental in-service training where they receive some of the same or similar instruction they got while they were in the academy, doesn't happen very often. When it comes to force-on-force training, when they're at the academy, they can get some good exposure to force-on-force training. When they get back to their agency, they may not be able to have the same or similar exposure to force-on-force training because their agency just simply doesn't own any marking cartridge guns, and they don't have the budget to be able to do a whole lot of it if they do own those. So it's hard to say, what this agency's training is like. I don't know anything about this agency and their training, but that's law enforcement all across the nation, hit or miss with some of those descriptions. It's not the same everywhere you go. Some places are better than others, but a lot of it, for every place, a lot of it is dictated by what they can do with their budget. Sometimes the training budget is just not very high. And also another factor in this is who is the instructor. So usually at the academies you can have decent instructors. as far as in-house goes within the agency, you know, if there's going to be someone doing training in-house to meet some of their in-service training needs, continuation hours, stuff like that, the person conducting the training, it can be somewhat questionable on whether or not that person is a good instructor or not, because there's a lot of agencies out there that will take a person who is in the office, because it's easier for them to take a person from the office, send them through an instructor school, and then when they get back, tell them, hey, on this day, you know, clear your schedule. You know, you're not doing any office stuff. You're going to go teach a taser class. You're going to go teach pepper spray class, firearms class, whatever. It's easier logistically for them to do that. But just because a person is in the office and they may be a sergeant, a lieutenant, a captain, something like that, that doesn't necessarily make them a good instructor. And in fact, they can be a horrible fucking instructor. And unfortunately, that happens in a lot of places. There are people sent to instructor schools simply because it's logistically easier to make them an instructor, instead of taking someone who's very eager and passionate about it, who wants to do it. And if there's a person who's passionate and eager about it and they're on patrol, they're working the street, chances are they're not going to be selected to go, because it would be logistically more difficult for that chief law enforcement officer or some administrator to have that officer come out of rotation on a work day and teach a class, and then have to schedule someone else to cover for him while they're out of patrol rotation, and then pay that person's overtime, and or have this person work on their day off and pay them the overtime, etc. So it can be a lot easier for, you know, the office dude to be able to do it just from logistics, but it doesn't always work the greatest, because some office people just aren't that good. But anyway, like I said, there are misses in gunfights, and that is some of the causes that lead into why there are misses. It's not an excuse. It's not saying, hey, this is acceptable. It's just an explanation into how this shit happens. And, which I have not seen the video yet, I'm going to say it's possible they're using pistols at this point. And if they're using pistols, then obviously there's an accuracy issue. Pistols are not as accurate as rifles. So we'll see here in a second what's going on. Now, they did say officers were in the east and west side of the hallway.
Hey, keep going!
Left coast fire. Left coast fire. Stay right there.
So this means that there's a potential crossfire kind of issue.
Stay where you at. Stay where you at. Stay where you at. Hey! Drop the fucking gun! You guys stay good. You stay for good. Stay where you at. Make sure you're behind the shield. They fire you.
So this interior wall is shit for cover. If there's people down here shooting, you don't want to be anywhere near these corners at all. Bullets go through interior walls very, very easy. Very easy. So being near these corners is not where you want to be if there's a crossfire kind of scenario and there could be multiple people on the other side of the hallway shooting and rounds come down this direction.
I fired.
He fired.
He came out and fired. I fired 2 shots.
Okay.
He's probably trying to bait people.
100%.
Hey, get down on the ground! Get on the fucking ground!
mag reloading. You're good. Come back out. Watch out, Cassie. Hey! Drop the fucking gun! We're not good, dude! Tell them shots fired. We don't have service in here.
Go back out.
Get outside and tell them, bro. Drop the fucking gun, dude! We don't want to hurt you. We want to help you out.
So I like how he is telling someone to go get on the radio. Now, granted, he's telling someone to go get on the radio because the radios don't work inside this building. But he is communicating to someone to go do radio communications. And he's keeping his gun in the fight. He's keeping both hands on the gun instead of fucking with the radio. I see too often scenarios in some of these videos where officers need to be keeping both hands on the gun and working the gun instead of working the radio. Now, that being said, yes, the forces that can shoot, move, and communicate are often the victors. Communication is key in this kind of stuff. But if it's time to be fighting, it's time to be fighting, not talking on the radio. So I like how he is communicating to someone to be the radio person. And that's what I suggest in scenarios where there's multiple officers involved. Everyone else should kind of adjust the volume on the radio some to where it's down, to where it's not going to, bother them too much, or just, all the way down where it's not a distractant. And then designate one person as the radio operator. That's their primary function. They're not a shooter. They're not clearing corners and shit like that. Their job is to man the radio. They're the one who is going to be responsible for talking to incoming units, talking to dispatch, whatever. Everybody else who's going to be task-oriented on the threat, that's what their job is, dealing with the threat. Their hands need to be on the guns and the tools, not the radios. So that's what I would recommend for large incidents where there's multiple officers there. Designate one person as the radio person, and that's their job. That's their monkey. That's what they deal with. Everyone else gets to stay in the fight and be more effective fighters. For incidents where there's not a whole lot of officers and whatnot, still, again, if it's time to fight, fight. Then, when it is safe to do so, talk on the radio. Dispatch can wait. They may be urgent sounding when they call the unit number, but they can wait.
Hey, we want to help you, bro.
Come out with nothing in your hand.
Cassie, just be. Hey, get the. Get on the fucking ground! Get up! Get up! I'm mag reloading. You're good. Come back out. Watch out, Cassie.
Sam, I'm about 15 minutes out. Where does she want me?
At 1, 2.
20 Nora, we don't have any kind of perimeter on this. We're holding the suspect's apartment door from the front.
2 o'clock, about a mile, maneuvering low level 800 indicated helicopter. A1, the air's clear.
Able, go ahead.
We'll stay here at or below. All right, looks like we have, if where the officers are at, give me the next building. It looks like we're probably going to have some obvious signs of death. I have the male, the next come back around the orbit here. It's the building to the, I'll call it the south. I'll get you a better location here in a second.
Well, that wasn't very...
All right.
Able, go ahead.
We'll stay here at or below. All right, looks like we have...
So, yeah, that looks to be quite a bit of blood. Obviously, when they say self-inflicted gunshot wound, everyone thinks of the head. And, you know, head wounds can bleed a lot. You know, if you've ever watched one of those kind of videos, then you'll see just about how much blood can come out of a person. We know that this person wasn't hit by any of the officers' fire. So that's not where the blood's coming from. And if it was, you'd likely see some type of trail leading up to where he's at. But this is obviously from where he has had that self-inflicted wound, and most likely from the head. That's where most of those people will do it at. And head wounds can bleed a whole lot. So that's where all this is coming from, most likely. It's also possible that he does have this white shirt on. We don't see a whole lot of red there. It's also possible that he may have been trying to stuff the gun down into his pants, put it in his pocket, popped a round off, hit himself in the leg, and he just basically bled out while they were trying to figure out, you know, what's going on and where he's at. There does appear to be some more splattering look kind of over here versus just the pooling of the blood. So not 100% sure, you know, where his injury was at, but obviously, you know, he shot himself.
If death, I have the male, the next come back around the orbit here. It's the building to the, I'll call it the south. I'll get you a better location here in a second.
Look at that. Look at that. That's an old generation Glock right there. You don't even have the rails on it. This is it's kind of a dinosaur at this point. There's actually some people who will pay a lot of money for one of these original Glocks that does not have the rail on it. It's kind of like a collector item for some people. So it's kind of sad that, you know, this kind of gun that could be like a collector piece in a way is obviously going to no longer be available for anyone to own. It's going to be most likely sitting in an evidence vault for a long time, and then is probably going to end up being destroyed in some way. And being California, I'd say they probably take torches to guns after they've sat in evidence long enough and they purge out evidence. They just cut them up. So that's sad to think about. It doesn't specify where that gunshot wound was. I wish it would. Okay, so that's it on this video. Really not much else to say about this. This is pretty straightforward. The only gripe I have is, of course, the lack of rifles. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.